I'm Clara Beaumont, 29, a graphic designer from a small flat in Bristol, where I've spent years building a life with my husband, Oliver Hart. I'm the kind of woman who finds joy in small things, sketching logos by lamplight, sipping tea in cozy cafes, dreaming of a cottage with a garden. For 6 years, I believed Oliver and I were partners, planning a future in a Cotswolds village, our savings growing for a home of our own. I trusted his charm, his promises, even when his late nights at the law firm grew frequent, his excuses vague. Christmas was supposed to be our moment, gathering with his family, sharing my figgy pudding, building memories. But when I arrived at his mother's cottage, I found betrayal instead. This is my story of how a single note, a dying man's trust, and a mysterious text turned my world upside down and set me free. If you're listening, thank you for joining me. Where are you today? Share in the comments and let's walk through this together. The December frost nipped at my cheeks, sharp as 1,000 tiny needles, as I eased my battered Fiat into the gravel drive of Oliver Hart's family cottage in the Cotswolds. 29, I'd spent months weaving dreams of this Christmas, visions of mulled wine steaming in mismatched mugs, fairy lights weaving golden threads through the dusk, the hum of family laughter wrapping me in warmth. My boot was stuffed with ribbon-tied parcels and a wicker basket brimming with ingredients for my figgy pudding, a recipe I'd tweaked to perfection for Oliver's mother, Marianne, hoping to win her elusive approval. The village of Chipping Campden sparkled around me, its stone houses glowing with wreaths and candlelight, a postcard of festive cheer. But the cottage loomed ahead, a dark husk against the twilight, its windows blank and unlit, staring like empty eyes. No carols spilled from within, no scent of roasting chestnuts or crackle of a hearth fire. Just a chilling, unnatural silence that coiled around my heart, tightening it with unease. I killed the engine, the gravel crunching under my boots as I stepped out, my breath puffing in frosty clouds. The air smelled of damp earth and pine, but the cottage's oak door, swollen with winter's wet, resisted my push, creaking like a warning. Inside, the hall was frigid, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and lingers. My boots echoed on the flagstone floor, each step amplifying the absence of life. No clatter of pans, no murmur of voices, no Oliver rushing to greet me with his easy grin. My stomach knotted, a primal instinct whispering that something was terribly wrong. I flicked on the kitchen light, its weak bulb casting a sallow glow over chipped cabinets and a cluttered counter. There, on the butcher's block, lay a single sheet of paper, Oliver's jagged scrawl slicing across it like a wound. Gone on a Mediterranean cruise with Sophie and Mum. You'll stay and look after Roland. Back Monday. Oliver. My fingers trembled, the paper crinkling in my grip, its edges sharp against my skin. Sophie Laurent. His colleague at the law firm whose name had crept into his stories too often these past months. Her laugh described with a warmth that made my chest tighten. Just a work friend, he'd said, his hazel eyes dodging mine over dinner. I'd believed him, or wanted to, clinging to the Oliver who'd proposed under a Bristol street lamp, promising a cottage of our own. The note fluttered from my hand, landing like a dead leaf as my knees buckled. I sank into a creaky kitchen chair, its wicker digging into my thighs, the cold wood grounding my spiraling thoughts. This couldn't be real. We'd planned this Christmas for months, Marianne hosting, Elise and her husband coming, a proper family gathering. My figgy pudding was meant to be the centerpiece, a bridge to Marianne's frosty heart. But this note, this betrayal, shattered that dream like glass underfoot. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket, a harsh jolt that snapped me from my daze. An Instagram alert from Elise, Oliver's younger sister. My thumb hovered, dread pooling in my gut, but I opened it. The image hit like a physical blow, stealing my breath. Oliver stood on a sunlit cruise deck, the Mediterranean sparkling behind him, his arms snug around Sophie's waist. Her blonde hair danced in the sea breeze, her smile radiant as they clinked champagne flutes, toasting the camera. Marianne lounged nearby, her cocktail glinting in the sunlight, her sunglasses perched like a queen's crown. Captions seared into me. #New Beginnings Mediterranean Getaway with Oliver Hart and Family. Family. The word was a slap, my heart a raw, pulsing wound. They were my family, or so I'd thought. 6 years of marriage, of shared dreams and quiet nights, reduced to this public betrayal broadcast for all to see. My fingers, numb with shock, fumbled to our banking app, a desperate need to understand clawing at me. The screen loaded and my breath caught, a €4,800 withdrawal dated 3 days ago. Our cottage fund, every euro we'd scrimped for gone. Oliver's voice echoed in my mind, promises whispered over candlelit suppers in our Bristol flat, his hand warm in mine as we sketched plans for a garden, a life. Lies. All of it. Kitchen spun, the bulbs flicker mimicking my racing pulse. I dialed Oliver's number, my hand shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Voicemail again, his cheerful greeting a mockery. I tried again, then a third time, each unanswered call a hammer to my fracturing heart. The cottage's chill wrapped around me, mirroring the icy betrayal sinking into my core. I was alone, abandoned in this empty house, my dreams stolen alongside our savings. Creak from the doorway snapped my head up, my heart lurching. Roland Fisher, Oliver's stepfather, stood there, leaning heavily on a polished cane. His frame was frail, his white hair thinning, but his blue eyes were sharp, piercing through the dim light like a hawk's. 72, he was nothing like the decrepit burden Oliver had described, always with a dismissive wave. "They've left you with me, haven't they?" His voice rasped, heavy with a knowing that sent a shiver down my spine. Classic Oliver. The words carried weight, as if he'd seen this moment coming, as if he'd been waiting for me to catch up. I tried to speak, my voice barely a whisper, cracking under the pressure of my unraveling world. "We planned this Christmas for months. Marianne was supposed to host. Everyone was coming." The words felt foolish, a plea for a reality that no longer existed. Roland shuffled to the fridge, his cane tapping the flagstones, and pulled out a jug of water with trembling hands. The glass clinked as he poured, the sound stark in the silent kitchen. "They left Tuesday," he said, his tone flat but edged with something darker. "Didn't even stock the fridge properly." His eyes met mine, not with pity but with a clarity that cut through my fog of shock. I dialed Oliver again, voicemail, his absence a final confirmation of his betrayal. Cottage's cold seeped deeper, a mirror to the hollow ache in my chest. Roland set the jug down, his gaze never leaving me. "They've been planning this," he said, tapping his temple with a gnarled finger. "And I've been watching." My pulse raced, a mix of fear and curiosity sparking through my numbness. This wasn't just a ruined holiday, a forgotten wife left to tend an old man. It was calculated, deliberate, a betrayal woven into months of lies. Roland, this near stranger with eyes too sharp for his frail body, seemed to hold a truth I wasn't ready to face but couldn't ignore. The silence of the cottage pressed in, heavy with secrets, and I felt the ground shift beneath me. My life, as I'd known it, was about to change irrevocably. Cottage kitchen, lit by a single flickering bulb, felt like a war room, its shadows dancing across the chipped oak table like battle lines. Roland Fisher slid a worn manila folder toward me, his gaunt frame hunched but his movements deliberate. 72, pancreatic cancer had carved hollows into his cheeks, but his blue eyes burned with a fierce clarity like a lighthouse cutting through fog. "They think I'm a burden," he said, his voice low but steady, each word weighted with years of unspoken pain. "But I've been keeping track." My hands, still trembling from the shock of Oliver's note, hesitated before opening the folder. As a graphic designer, I'd spent years honing my eye for detail, but nothing prepared me for the meticulous evidence Roland had compiled. Bank statements with transfers circled in red ink, medical records of ignored prescriptions, a handwritten log of missed appointments, each entry a testament to betrayal. Oliver and Marianne had siphoned funds meant for Roland's care, €10,000 marked home care that never materialized, leaving him with half doses of painkillers and a house so chilly I could see my breath. My anger surged, a hot tide rising in my chest, my fingers tightening on the brittle pages until they crinkled. Oliver took our savings too, I said, the words bitter as bile. Euro 4, 800 for that cruise with Sophie. Her name tasted like poison, conjuring the Instagram image of her blonde hair glinting in the Mediterranean sun, Oliver's arm around her. Roland nodded, unsurprised, his lips a thin line. They see people as transactions. I learned that too late with Marianne. He leaned forward, his cane tapping the flagstone floor, a sharp punctuation to his words. The sound echoed in the quiet kitchen, where the faint smell of damp wood and stale coffee lingered. But you and I, Clara, were not done yet. His proposal hit like a thunderclap. Help him document their neglect, finalize his true will, and inherit his hidden €2.8 million estate, properties in Devon, accounts in Jersey, untouchable by Marianne or Oliver. In return, we'd expose their betrayal, strip them of the inheritance they assumed was theirs. My breath caught, my heart pounding against my ribs. This wasn't just revenge. It was justice for a man discarded like an old coat, left to shiver in his own home. I stared into Roland's eyes, seeing not just pain but defiance, a fire that mirrored the spark igniting within me. "I'm in," I said, my voice firm despite the storm of emotions swirling inside, anger, hurt, and a burgeoning resolve. Our alliance was sealed over a makeshift meal I cobbled together from a frantic grocery run to the village shop. The roasted turkey breast, potatoes, and green beans weren't the Christmas feast I'd planned, but as we sat at the table, the oven's warmth battling the cottage's chill, the meal felt like a pact. Roland ate slowly, his trembling hands cradling the fork, and shared more. Marianne's designer handbags, bought with his money, Oliver's dismissive comments at doctor's visits, calling Roland a chore. Each revelation was a mirror to my own marriage. Oliver's subtle control, urging me to work from home, isolating me from friends, borrowing my father's €30,000 inheritance for our future, felt like a playbook I hadn't seen until now. Cottage's walls seemed to close in, their peeling wallpaper heavy with the weight of our shared betrayal. Roland's gaze softened, his eyes tracing my face as if seeing past my exhaustion. "You're stronger than you know, Clara." The words landed gently, like snow on a quiet night, stirring something deep within me. He rose, his cane clicking as he led me to his study, a cramped room smelling of old books and dust, where Marianne's meditation cushions clashed with his cluttered desk. From a drawer, he produced a locked metal box, its key dangling from a chain around his neck. Inside were a property deed for this very cottage and investment records detailing accounts in Jersey, a fortune hidden from his greedy family. "This house, their inheritance, belongs to a trust they'll never touch," he said, his voice steady but laced with triumph. My pulse quickened, the scope of his €2.8 million estate staggering, a secret fortress built against Marianne and Oliver's greed. I ran my fingers over the deed, the paper cool and smooth, its legal weight grounding me in our mission. As night fell, the village outside sank into quiet, its fairy lights dimmed by a thickening fog. Cottage creaked, its timbers settling like an old man's bones, and I felt a spark of purpose ignite. Roland and I mapped our plan. We'd stage his decline, using photos and messages to trap Oliver and Marianne in their lies, to show the world their neglect. Kitchen's flickering bulb cast long shadows, making Roland's frail figure seem larger, a warrior in his final battle. I wasn't just a betrayed wife, nursing the wound of Oliver's affair or the theft of our savings. I was Roland's partner, his ally in a fight for dignity. The pain of Oliver's note, Sophie's laugh, Marianne's cocktail still burned, but it was fuel now, driving me toward a reckoning. As I cleared the plates, the clink of porcelain sharp in the silence, I felt the weight of my old life lifting. I was ready to turn their abandonment into their undoing, to stand with Roland and reclaim what they'd stolen. His legacy, my future, our truth. Cotswolds' night was silent, save for the wind rattling the cottage windows like restless spirits. I sat by Roland Fisher's bedside, my hands clasped tightly in my lap, watching his chest rise and fall with shallow, steady breaths. 72, his face was etched with the ravages of pancreatic cancer, yet even in sleep, he seemed defiant, refusing the hospital bed looming in the corner like a grim sentinel. The room smelled of antiseptic and old books, their leather spines lining a sagging shelf, a stark contrast to the festive glow of Christmas I'd imagined, with fairy lights and the scent of mulled wine. My phone buzzed on the bedside table, its screen flaring with an unknown number. The text was chilling. "They're hiding more than you know. Check Marianne's emails." My heart lurched, a cold jolt spiking through me. Who was this? A neighbor who'd seen too much? A colleague of Oliver's with a grudge? The anonymity felt like a shadow slipping through the dark, watching me. Instinct drove me to my feet, my socks whispering against the cold floorboards as I crept to the study. Marianne's sleek laptop sat on a mahogany desk, its screensaver a mocking photo of her sipping Prosecco on some sun-drenched terrace. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling. I'd never hacked anything before, never violated someone's privacy. But the text's warning burned in my mind, a fire urging me forward. I typed Oliver's birth date, a password so predictable it twisted the knife of his betrayal. The screen unlocked, and my breath caught as I scrolled through an email thread between Marianne and Oliver dated months back. "Roland's a liability," Marianne wrote, her words clinical, venomous. "A care home will free up the estate faster. I found one in Bristol, cheap, discreet." Oliver's reply was ice. "Do it after Christmas. He won't last long." My stomach churned, bile rising in my throat. This wasn't just neglect. It was a calculated plan to warehouse Roland, to strip his dignity and plunder his wealth. More emails detailed meetings with a shady solicitor, plans to declare Roland incompetent, to lock him away where his sharp mind couldn't fight back. The betrayal cut deeper than Oliver's affair with Sophie, deeper than the 4,800 euros he'd stolen from our savings. This was monstrous, a conspiracy that turned my 6 years of marriage into a lie. My hand shook as I printed the emails, the printer's hum a grim underscore to my racing pulse. Back in Roland's room, I knelt by his bed, the pages crumpling in my grip. "They wanted to lock you away," I whispered, my voice cracking as I showed him the evidence. His eyes, clouded with pain, sharpened, a flicker of hurt giving way to resolve. "I knew they were ruthless, but this," his voice trailed off, his thin hand clenching the blanket. The discovery was a spark, igniting our plan with new urgency. I arranged medical props, an oxygen tank, monitors around Roland's bed, creating a grim tableau of decline. The room's antiseptic scent grew sharper as I positioned the equipment, my movements precise despite my trembling hands. I snapped photos of Roland, his face shadowed to look near death, the dim lamplight carving hollows in his cheeks. I sent them to Elise with a message. Roland's fever spiked to 39 degrees Celsius. Managing pain. Her reply was quick but hollow. "Keep me posted." My resolve hardened, a steel core forming beneath my pain. The mysterious text, a spark in the dark, had exposed a conspiracy that made our fight personal. Roland clutched my hand, his grip weak but fierce, his eyes locking onto mine. "We'll protect my dignity," he rasped. I nodded, vowing to shield him. The family's return loomed, a storm gathering, and with it, a reckoning that would shatter their greed-fueled illusions. Dawn painted the Cotswolds cottage in soft gold, its light filtering through frost-etched windows, but inside, the warmth couldn't touch the chill of Roland Fisher's decline. His hands trembled more violently now, a bluish tint creeping around his lips like a cruel tide. 29, I was weary, my eyes heavy from sleepless nights, yet I adjusted his pillows with care, the linen cool against my fingers. The room was heavy with the scent of lavender from a diffuser I'd found in Marianne's cluttered study, its gentle hum a faint shield against the antiseptic bite of Roland's illness. His pancreatic cancer was winning, a relentless foe, but his spirit held firm, a quiet defiance in his sunken eyes. "Peaches and cream," he murmured, a faint smile breaking through the pain, his voice barely above a whisper. "My late wife Elise made them every Sunday." The words stirred a pang in my chest, and I scoured 3 village shops, my boots crunching on icy paths to find tinned peaches. Back in the kitchen, I sliced them into crescents, dolloping cream as he'd described, the act grounding me. When I set the bowl before him, his eyes misted, a tear tracing his weathered cheek. "Just like her," he whispered, and my heart cracked, not just for him but for the love he'd lost. Our bond, forged in the fire of Oliver and Marianne's betrayal, had deepened into something profound, a lifeline in the wreckage of my 6-year marriage. I sat by Roland's bed, reading from his dog-eared Raymond Chandler novel, The Big Sleep, my voice studying his uneven breaths. Pages smelled of dust and time, each word a tether to his fading strength. Between chapters, he shared fragments of his life, his banking career in London, Elise's laugh like wind chimes, trips to Tuscany they'd never taken. "No one's cared like this since she died 12 years ago," he said, his voice a fragile thread, fraying but resolute. My heart ached, not just for Roland's loneliness but for the life I'd lost to Oliver's lies. His stolen €4,800, his affair with Sophie, his promises now ash. Yet, caring for Roland gave me purpose, a clarity I hadn't known I possessed. I found an old radio in the parlor, its dials stiff with disuse, and played box air on the G-string. The notes wrapped us in a cocoon of dignity, a quiet rebellion against the family's cruelty, the cottage's creaking walls fading into the music's embrace. Roland's resolve never wavered. He summoned his solicitor, Beatrice Lang, and a notary, Thomas, their footsteps echoing on the flagstones. Despite his frailty, his mind was razor-sharp, a blade honed by necessity. "Death clarifies things," he said, signing documents with a trembling hand, transferring his €2.8 million estate to me as trustee, with funds for elder abuse charities. The will, stark and unyielding, cited Oliver and Marianne's abandonment, diluted pills, cancelled appointments, their greed laid bare. Beatrice set up a tablet, its screen glowing in the dim room, and Roland recorded a video testimony, his voice calm but piercing, each word a quiet indictment. "Clara showed me more dignity in days than my family did in years," he said, detailing their neglect with devastating precision. The footage, restrained yet powerful, was a weapon we'd wield when the time came. As evening fell, the village lights twinkled beyond the window, fragile against the gathering dark. Roland asked for a dusty bottle of port, hidden behind economics textbooks in his study. "For our 50th anniversary," he said, his voice soft with memory as I poured the amber liquid into crystal glasses, their edges catching the lamplight. "To justice," he said, raising his glass with effort. I clinked mine, my throat tight. "To dignity." We sat by the window, the cold glass against my shoulder, as Roland's breathing grew labored, each inhale a struggle. I held his hand, reading Chandler until his grip slackened, the book slipping to my lap. At midnight, he slipped away, peaceful as if falling asleep. Tears streamed down my face, hot and unrelenting, not just for Roland but for the strength I'd found in our fleeting alliance. His death wasn't the end, it was the spark for our final act. As the cottage settled into silence, I vowed to deliver the reckoning he'd entrusted to me, with the precision he'd taught me, to shatter Oliver and Marianne's greed-fueled illusions. Cottage's silence shattered as car doors slammed outside, the gravel crunching under carefree steps. Laughter spilled from Oliver Hart's family, fresh from their Mediterranean cruise, their voices jarring against the grief I carried. 29, I stood in the living room, my black dress stark against the festive garlands I'd hung for a Christmas that never came, their pine scent now a bitter reminder. Roland's empty rocking chair loomed like a judge's bench, its creak still echoing in my memory. Oliver burst through the door, sunburned and grinning, his arms laden with duty-free bags, followed by Marianne, Elise, and Sophie Laurent, her blonde hair glinting in the morning light. "Honey, we're home," Oliver called, his voice bright until he saw my solemn face. His smile faltered. "What's with the funeral get-up?" Marianne dropped her designer bag on the console, her eyes narrowing. "Where's Roland?" "Roland passed Saturday night," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "Peacefully in his sleep. The funeral was yesterday, neighbors and his banking friends attended." Oliver's bags thudded to the floor. Sophie stepped back, her eyes wide with unease. Marianne scoffed, her voice sharp. You held his funeral without us? I met her gaze, unflinching. I left messages about his decline. You chose not to answer. Elise stammered, her tan paling. I told you, Oliver, he looked bad. I gestured to the coffee table, where Roland's cream envelope rested, its edges worn from his careful hands. He left this for you. As I read Roland's letter, my voice carried his pain, each word a quiet wound. Holidays spent alone, canceled doctor's appointments, overheard remarks about waiting for the old man to die. The room grew heavy, the air thick with guilt. Oliver fidgeted, his fingers twisting. Marianne's face hardened into a mask. Sophie stared at her feet, shrinking from the truth. I led them to the dining room, where folders lay in neat rows, bank statements, medical records, neighbor testimonies, a chronicle of their neglect. Evidence, I said, pressing play on Roland's video. His calm voice filled the room, detailing their cruelty, diluted pills, forgotten care, greedy whispers. Even Marianne's protests fell silent. Then I slid the printed emails across the table, my voice like steel. You plan to institutionalize him to seize his estate faster. Oliver's face drained of color. Marianne froze, her plot exposed, the room electric with their shame. Beatrice Lang arrived, her silver hair gleaming under the chandelier's glow. As executor, she said, her tone measured, I confirm Roland's estate, 2.8 million euros. This house, all assets, goes to Clara with provisions for elder abuse charities. The will cites your abandonment. Oliver sputtered. We'll contest it. Beatrice's smile was cool, unyielding. With this evidence? You'd only waste money you don't have. The house, held in trust, was mine to control, a fortress against their greed. Oliver's debts, swollen by the cruise, loomed like a noose. In the hallway, Oliver cornered me, his voice breaking. Clara, it was a mistake. We can start over. I saw him clearly, a hollow charmer, his hazel eyes empty of remorse. I placed my wedding ring and apartment keys in his palm, their weight gone from my life. You left him to die, I said softly. You get nothing, including me. Stepping into the November sunshine, I felt Roland's gift, not just wealth but clarity, a compass for my future. As I drove away, the village's lights faded, chipping Campden shrinking in my rear view. A new life beckoned, one I'd build on my terms, honoring the bond that had set me free. Roland taught me that true strength lies in compassion, in seeing those others discard. His trust wasn't just financial. It was a lesson in resilience, in choosing dignity over bitterness. I'll carry his memory by living boldly, helping others find their voice as he did for me. Life's betrayals can break us, but they also reveal who we can become, stronger, kinder, free. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in standing tall and never letting anyone dim your inner light, then please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Don't hesitate to leave a comment below because your story matters. You matter.